Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, The Glories of Devotional Service, text number 20. And it's pretty simple Sanskrit, so I think I'll recite it and see if you can say it responsibly. Prasangam ajaram pasham, prasangam ajaram pasham, atmana kavayo viduhu, atmana kavayo. Saeva sadhushu krito, saeva sadhushu krito, mokshadvaram apavritam, mokshadvaram. Pretty good. Translation: every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. Quote by Srila Prabhupada. Nice verse. Here it is clearly stated, attachment for one thing is the cause of bondage in conditioned life, and the same attachment, when applied to something else, opens the door of liberation. Attachment cannot be killed, semicolon. It has simply to be transferred. Attachment for material things is called material consciousness, and attachment for Krishna or his devotee is called Krishna consciousness. Consciousness, therefore, is the platform of attachment. It is clearly stated here that when we simply purify the consciousness from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness, we attain liberation. Despite the statement that one should give up attachment, desirelessness is not possible by constitution, has the propensity to be attached to something. We see that if someone has no object of attachment, if he has no children, then he transfers his attachment to cats and dogs. This indicates that the propensity for attachment cannot be stopped, semicolon. It must be utilized for the best purpose. Our attachment for material things perpetuates our conditional state. But the same attachment, when transferred to the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, is the source of liberation. Paragraph. Here it is recommended that attachment should be transferred to the self-realized devotees, the sadhus. And who is the sadhu? A sadhu is not just an ordinary man with a saffron robe or long beard. A sadhu is described in Bhagavad Gita as one who unflinchingly engages in devotional service, even though one is found not to be following the strict rules and regulations of devotional service. If one simply has unflinching faith in Krishna, the Supreme Person, he is understood to be a sadhu. Sadhur eva samantavya. A sadhu is a strict follower of devotional service. It is recommended here that if one at all wants to realize Brahman or spiritual perfection, his attachment should be transferred to the sadhu or devotee. Lord Chaitanya also confirmed this. Lavamatra sadhu sange sarvasiddhihai. Simply by a moment's association with a sadhu, one can attain perfection. Final paragraph. Mahatma is a synonym of sadhu. It is said that service to a Mahatma or elevated devotee of the Lord is Dvaram Ahor Vimukte, the Royal Road of Liberation. References 552. Bishop Dave. Mahatsevam Dvaram Ahor Vimuktes, Tamo Dvaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. Rendering service to the materialists has the opposite effect. If anyone offers service to a gross materialist or a person engaged only in sense enjoyment, then, by association with such a person, the door to hell is open. The same principle is confirmed here. Attachment to a devotee is attachment to the service of the Lord, because if one associates with a sadhu, the result will be that the sadhu will teach him how to become a devotee, a worshiper, and a sincere servitor of the Lord. These are the gifts of a sadhu. If we want to associate with a sadhu, we can expect him to give us instructions on how to improve. We cannot expect him to give us instructions on how to improve our material condition, but he will give us instructions on how to cut the knot of the contamination of material attraction and how to elevate ourselves in devotional service. That is the result of associating with the sadhu. Kapila Muni first of all instructs that the path of liberation begins with such association. I'll just say the verse again. Prasangam arjuram pasham atmana kavayo vidhu saeva sadhushu krito mokshadvaram apavratam. Mokshadvaram apavratam. Apavratam. The door of liberation is opened. Means when the door opens, you have to walk through the door. When association of sadhu is available, the door is open, and then it follows sadhu sangha or sadhu prasanga. It's its attachment. Anyway, what follows sadhu sangha is bhajana kriya. There's a lot of symmetry or consistency in the teachings of the Bhagavatam and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya's associates. Just like that standard verse of the stages of bhakti, starting from some preliminary faith, just reading yesterday, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Bhajana Rahasya, he covers the same topic, of course, following Rupa Goswami, but his indication is that this Adau Shraddha arises from unknowing, Agyata Sukriti. Agyata Sukriti. Unknowingly, one may have done something beneficial, or unknowingly. And by the accumulation of that unknowing, rendering some service, then to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that's how preliminary faith may be situated in someone's heart or arises in someone's heart. In response to that preliminary faith or Adau Shraddha, there's different explanations. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says one becomes eager for such association of the sadhu, or the other way around. Krishna sees this preliminary faith, and Krishna, out of his kindness, sends sadhu. And that's a more common understanding, but what Bhakti would talk about. The inquisitiveness, the eagerness, the curiosity, at least, to find something higher, a reality that's higher than the material reality, and someone. Specifically, in the sequence of bhakti, this is describing becoming attached. Prasangam, word for word, is attachment. Prasangam, becoming attached. And that becoming attached is a natural sequence of being in the company of someone who's sadhu-like, or a sadhu. But there's a prerequisite. What's the prerequisite? The prerequisite is some preliminary faith. Supposing there isn't some preliminary faith, and here comes the sadhu, then one can do other things besides bhajan kriya, or becoming attached to the personality of Godhead. One can become attached to something else.
Yeah.
Our technology team is struggling a little bit here, so we'll pause. That's why I'm pausing. Are we okay now? Yes? No? Continue? Pause? Okay. Okay. The Bhagavatam verse, this is part of a series of verses, an ashtakam within chapter 25. Chapter 25 is the glories of devotional service, and from the very, very beginning of the chapter, Kapila Muni, Kapila Dev, has informed his mother the way to maintain her Krishna consciousness and her aspirations is sadhu sangha. Now he's detailing. The statement, the declaration was made at the beginning, and now it's fluffing it out a bit, or expanding the concept, the instruction. So the emphasis here is becoming attached. And in the purport, Prabhupada's explanation is very standard and very similar to that which is found in other places. One must be attached to something. Another way of saying the same thing. One must have desire. Why? Because it's the nature of the soul to have desire. Or it's the nature of the soul to be attached to something. Or it's the nature of the soul to serve. And that which we serve, there's a tendency to become attached to that which we serve, and it amplifies the desire. Unless it's material, and then it becomes frustrated, and one may want to give it up. One may want to continue, even if the happiness expectation isn't met. So, sadhu sangha is recommended to go beyond the material attachment dimension of life. Conditioned life is a soul that, by misuse of independence, finds oneself in the material atmosphere, and in the material atmosphere, attachment to things that are of the material nature, limited and temporary, etc., etc. And so that doesn't satisfy. So one is changing this attachment to that attachment, this object to that object, this field of activities to that field of activities, searching for happiness that substantially is missing. There's a semblance of happiness, or a reflection of happiness. Semblance is a nice word. It's not just it resembles the real thing, but so does a reflection resemble the real thing. It is the reflection of. Very simple. I like the example of a mirror and an apple, and you hold the mirror up and you look at the reflection of the apple in the mirror. It looks just like apple, but there's no substance. It's a reflection only that has no substance. That's the semblance. It resembles, this material world resembles the object that it is a reflection of, but there's no substance, although it appears to be substantial. And that's material life, is becoming attached to reflections or semblances or that which looked like the real thing but isn't the real thing. And on and on and on, searching for happiness in that realm, lifetime after life, experience after the next experience, and so on. What breaks that cycle? What doesn't break the cycle is becoming desireless, because there's no such thing. This thing means souls have desire. Souls have attachment. Souls have personality, so it doesn't work just to negate things. Neti, it doesn't work. It can give one a false sense of relief from attachment to the temporary. Sukh. But it's not enduring, because it's not the real platform of the soul. So what to do? Become attached to sadhu. And now comes who's a sadhu. So there's two paragraphs that give this definition. One is Mahatma, is equivalent to the word sadhu. And the Mahatma, or the great soul, has Daivim Prakritim Ashrita, completely taken shelter of the spiritual energy. And the spiritual energy, of course, is the spiritual realm where the Supreme Spirit resides. And that's a Mahatma. One who becomes fortunate to have that association with Mahatma, become attached to that Mahatma, please, and become attached to the sadhu. And then, so the other paragraph, who is a sadhu, it's a devotee. Easy one. Now, a curious statement, quite curious. I'll see if I can find it again. Yes. A sadhu, and who is a sadhu? This is the second paragraph. A sadhu is not just an ordinary man with a saffron robe or long beard. Sadhu is described in Bhagavad Gita as one who unflinchingly engages in devotional service. Then this curious sentence. Even though one is found not to be following strict rules and regulations of devotional service, if one simply has unflinching faith in Krishna, the Supreme Person, he is understood to be a sadhu. And he quotes Sadhu Eva Samantavya. That sadhu or Eva Samantavya verse indicates that Krishna does the course correction. Someone that's not found to be following the strict rules and regulations of devotional service. In short, they will come to that stage. Why? Because the course correction factor, Krishna himself corrects it. They're on the way. And so what's the criterion for sadhu? It's not how far along the way one is, but the criterion is unflinching faith in Krishna So unflinching faith, that's a nice adjective. Unflinching faith. That unflinching faith means without motivation, without interruption. Ahoituki pratyata. So when things are going nicely, unflinching. When things are not going nicely, unflinching. Faith in Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that can be a long road to get to having no material contamination and being a strict follower of the regulations and so forth. The sadhana bhakti, sadhana bhakta, by unflinching faith, regardless of circumstance, unflinching faith. Road may be bumpy, but when we'll get to the destination by unflinching faith. So let's go backwards. Where does that unflinching faith come from? Well, it's nourished by sadhu sangha, but it may also come, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, from Gyanta Sukriti, pious activities and pious activities and pious activities. It may arise unknowingly from unknowingly performing devotional service. I'm thinking of some examples. Some examples of people who are neighbors, Hare Krishna temples. And they may not like to have Hare Krishna devotees as their neighbor. But a Gyanta Sukriti and a Gyanta Sukriti and a Gyanta Sukriti. Or another nice example I like is Shivananda Sen's dog. Now, who knows who that dog was in his previous life, but by association with Shivananda Sen and the compassion of Shivananda Sen to the dog, he eventually became a recipient of Lord Chaitanya's mercy directly. Gyata Sukriti. It's not always going to move that quickly down the trail of Chaitanya's mercy, but the association of a devotee unknowingly may result in an association of devotees. He became a transformed person. Now, I don't know what happened after that because I left Boston after the summer. But it's a nice example. Accumulation of Gyanta Sukriti. And who knows where he was in his life before this summer exchange on the Boston Common. So whatever it was, it started, at least his conduct started with being violently opposed to sadhu sangha and the holy name and propagating Krishna consciousness. So the attachment needs to be changed to prasangam, attachment to a sadhu. Sangam, ajaram, strong, pasham, strong entanglement. Atmanaha kavayo vidu. Learned men know that the attachment to sadhu can transform. It has the power to transform. How long have we been in the material world? Say, since time immemorial. That's a good guess, or a very reasonable statement. since time immemorial. And the language of the scripture is anadi avidya, beginningless ignorance, since time immemorial. That's a long time. And to get out of this timeless ignorance, one may try this, and one may try that, and one may try another thing. But at least the Bhagavatam is making it very clear. So the reference to Rishabdev's teaching, same. That's 5th canto, chapter 5, text 2. Here it's 3rd canto, chapter 25, text 20, saying the same thing. Dvaram ahor vimuktes. Dvaram is the gate. The gate, or the entryway into liberation, is association. Mahat sevam, not just association, rendering service to the great souls. Very common everyday experiences. The pause there is just thinking. When a devotee, for example, a devotee wants to get to a certain destination and some direction from someone how to get to that destination, so they ask which way to such and such place. The person that renders that service of making some indication of how to get to that place, that's Agyata Sukriti. They may be doing simply because it's their profession. I mean, this happened recently. The San Francisco airport is a really confusing place. So to get to where I needed to go, the check-in was way over here, and a zillion corridors and a few miles to get to where the gate was. So I had to stop and ask a few times which way. I mean, I thought I was going the right direction, but I wanted to be sure because it's really complicated. And they would stop and give direction. And I was thinking, Agyata Sukriti. It's their profession. They're getting paid for doing it. But it's Agyata Sukriti. And, so but just on a mission, that's Krishna's mission, that makes for sadhu. And someone doing the same thing they do all day long, in the context of Mahat Sevam, they're getting some benefit. Their spiritual life has begun. Nice. Become pure devotees somehow, and then others can benefit. There will, even in the ordinary affairs of life. And further and further and further along the line of Mahat Sevam, or Prasangam Ajaram Pasham Atmana Kavayo Vidu Saeva Sadhushu Krito. Sadhushu Krito, when applied to sadhus, this principle of attachment, Moksha Dvaram, path of liberation or the door of liberation, Apavritam, it's open. So that's the beginning, and then take some more steps. Okay, so it's 7:35. Let's see if there's some discussion. I'm going to be conscious of time this morning because Zoom call after class will have to attend. So any questions in the room or questions online? It's question time.
Guru Maharaj, thank you for the class. As parents, we are often attached to having an agenda for the kids, and it could be different extremes. On the one hand, you want to chart the entire career or life of a child, and then on the other hand, you completely let them, go with the flow, like let things take shape on their own. How do we strike that balance? What is the right balance?
What's good parenting? Parenting styles, but just principles as opposed to styles is allow for individuality to express itself, encourage individuality to express itself, and as a good parent, help the child or dependent. It's not just children; it's disciples too, or persons in your community, congregation, people in your bhakti picture groups, etc., etc. It's setting some boundaries, and how the boundaries are set can be different styles, but in principle, setting boundaries, and then passing on values, meaning this leads to that. Therefore, be aware when you're making your choices, you're being yourself and exploring life. Understand there's consequences. And do you want that consequence? Do you not want that consequence? And so it's just from the voice of experience, helping to guide decisions rather than making decisions, and allowing the freedom to explore one's own spirit and propensities and so on and so on, and allow that it's going to modify as life unfolds instead of fulfilling the script of the parents or the student or the congregation member. Allowing. So it's like the iceberg of culture. That I like that example. It fits. It responds to your question. There's some unchanging realities. There's values. Then there's behaviors. In good parenting or good caring for others of other various ways, let the values take an important role. The unchanging realities don't get changed anyways, and then values can have its boundaries as well. And it may take different shape in terms of values, and certainly based upon value that drives the behaviors. But if a child has a good set of values and they're exploring their propensities and nature and what inspires them, provide resources that help nurture this inspiration, that inspiration, and allow that it's going to modify as they continue to grow to young adults and adults. Parenting. And this topic. Anything else? Discussion? Yeah.
Guru Maharaj, just a general observation in the lives of devotees and personally in my own life. Like in the beginning, when one practices Krishna consciousness, there is this rush to feel detached.
The rush to be detached.
Detached, where then one understands the importance of cultivating a relationship with sadhus and spiritual master. One goes further along. And then comes this, one comes face to face with the endless list of attachments that one has. And so two specific questions related to attachment that one has as one progresses further along. One is, does an attachment to one particular thing or a situation indicate something? Just like for example, if I have a need for something, I know it's an underlying, there's something going on. Is there anything that one needs to be aware of? Or should one just continue, cultivating the relationship with sadhus and spiritual master and know that the attachment cannot be killed and just stay patient?
You probably have something in mind. As you were speaking, my thoughts were going to, a standard kind of attachment for a person growing up. The standard kind of attachment is music. It's universal, all cultures of the world. So if someone has an inclination for music, it's not a problem. It's a natural inclination. And then so from there, that's what it was that was what I was meditating on. Supposing I'm a person I'm inclined to music. I don't want to kill it. So what kind of music? Consciousness elevating or consciousness degrading kind of music. And there can be, classical this, or it can be not classical this. Making choices based on the consequences of this choice or that choice. And so, but you weren't just speaking about a propensity for something, you're speaking about an object. Can you give an example? Doesn't have to be the one you have in mind.
Somebody is really attached to I want to achieve something in life.
I know some people like that.
So, but, that is clear. The attachment to wanting to achieve something is clear. But then there is circumstantial, so many other factors that leads to, one can be in the mode of passion and go get it. Right? And that's dangerous. So I want more clarity on when one is very aware, very self-aware of the attachment and the nitty-gritty surrounding that attachment. To me, it sounds like a very painful situation to be in.
A very what?
Painful situation.
Painful, yeah.
Because you're aware that that's out there, and that's not good. But so, how do we transfer that attachment?
Okay. There's principles and there's application of principles. Principles, for example, it's just right in the verse. It's sadhu sangha, or the attachment to mahatmas, etc., etc. Spirit transform becomes the doorway for transformation is transforming that material type of attachment to something spiritual. Let's take two fields. One is career attachment, attaining something career-wise, or another is within the sangha of devotees, having a leadership position. Certainly, I saw plenty of that during Prabhupada's time. Individuals jockeying for, position. Some of it was wanting recognition from Prabhupada. That was the thirst. But, side by side with that thirst was the material. So by becoming attached to Prabhupada, such persons, some became purified. Some didn't become purified and they had some problems. So the transformation aspect or force is wanting to serve and please. In other words, who's at the center? And if I stay at the center of a career, let's say there'll be these two options, a career goal, I want to achieve something in my career or in my life, and it's I'm at the center. That the transformation factor is that it put Krishna at the center, or Guru and Krishna at the center, or not just service to others, because that's very vague. It doesn't have the same, I want this because it'll be good for my family, but I'm still at the center. And now my ego will feel patted if I achieve this something, and if I don't achieve this something, I'm going to become grumpy or a dissatisfied fellow. Principle, it's right in the definition of bhakti. What bhakti isn't and what bhakti is. So what bhakti is that Krishna is at the center. Anukulyena Krishna Adushilan. And accepting those things that put Krishna at the center. So that's the teaching. And then the factor that moves the material affinity part to the transformed spiritual affinity higher destination is association of sadhus and transforming them. I'm at the center to Krishna's at the center. And sound is sound from the right source is one of the major transforming facilities or agencies. Like Natanam, Najanam, Nasundarim, Kavitam. But so the standard of pure bhakti is not that I want to annihilate desire, but those designation types of desires are not going to satisfy me. So the agency that transforms is sound, and the sound from the right source, and becoming attached, same principle, becoming attached to sadhu is the doorway for liberation from the material portion. So the center changes. That aspiration may not, but the center changes. Second question? You forgot.
I forgot. This
Else? Online anything? Doing nothing. Okay, go ahead. Sure.
So, Gurma, just building on what she was asking. So, this attachment to be valued or to be recognized, to be respected.
Yes.
I find that these are very deep-rooted attachments, and can be pretty destabilizing when you don't get that in the sphere of life that we are in, whether at work or family situations, stuff like that. How to address these deep-rooted attachments, because I can maybe handle a little bit better attachment to, say, external things like stuff, material things, but these are very hard to let go of.
I call it blind spots. And even blind spots I may have some acknowledgement of, but I continue as if I'm not acknowledging them, and so it doesn't, it's as if I don't acknowledge it. One way to address is values, that, passing and receiving values like humility. And humility is not this, not this. So what is it? I'm a tiny speck. It's like Prabhupada's answering this question, how do I remain humble? We're very, very tiny, quite insignificant, and acknowledging that in a deep way and having association with persons that are like that. And I'm open to being tapped on the shoulder when that specter of something, the deep-rooted something, appears, and then they tap me on the shoulder and kindly remind me, you don't like that. You've told me you don't like that, and I see it. And so I'm here to remind you. It's just like, a best friend. So that's not easy because attached. Somebody touches on attachment, then you can snap, reminding you that capacity. Or you can be grateful that you have such a nice friend or associate or companion or something that is helping me. One of the things I like to circulate is this sign it's on the wall in Bhakti Tirtha's Institute House. A friend is one who, and there's a few things. Know who you are, knows where you've been, accepts who you are, and still gently encourages you to grow. So having such friends is a big help to overcome deep-rooted stuff, the subtle stuff, the grosser physical stuff. Someone that's there to help you cure and become attached to transcendence instead of to temper. Again, it's a friend as opposed to an authority that I hang my faith on. Someone that's going to remind me. As I'm saying this out, just let me just do this, and I'm going to go. The last city in China that I was Shanghai. And Shanghai was one of the first places in mainland China that something developed. Tamal Krishna was based himself in Hong Kong, geographically not far from Hong Kong, Shanghai. And so there were some devotees in Shanghai that kind of got the ball rolling and helped him establish Krishna consciousness. And there was somebody in the gathering who, one of those early day, Tamal Krishna Raj disciple personalities, married couple, strong, etc. So this particular lady was a little quiet. So towards the end, I asked, is there something that you'd like to contribute to our discussion? Kind of like an Istagosti. Just opened the door. She was quiet. She looked at her husband. She looked back and looked down. So she was processing something, so just was quiet. And then the message was, it's not what it used to be. For X, Y, Z reasons. Government activity and the pandemic activity and the restrictions that they have because of their circumstance, and it's not what it used to be. You have to be really careful about circumstances of gatherings and kirtan and so on. But I spent about 20 minutes plus on the topic because it was not only relevant for her, but relevant for all the devotees. And the issue is different than what you're bringing up, but it's related at the same time. That is, take an issue. You all here in this room, and you because you've been involved in Krishna consciousness for so long, you're the leaders. You're the future. And what you're describing is what it was like in the good old days when there are persons who had deep faith and inspiration, and you were gathering inspiration from them, and it's not the same anymore, which was your message. So now what? You're the future. Because those persons may not be around for too long, but to speak of the restrictions of circumstances. Their availability for the sangha of devotees may, time is going to take that away. Then what? So don't wait, because you're the future. So take some initiative. It's not like I know the lady, so she's capable, but she likes the back seat, and she may have to take the front seat. Put her hand on the steering wheel and know what Krishna Bhakti is, and to her, I'm a tiny jiva, what can I do? That's humility. Help others in the same situation that she was in to feel connected. So it's the same principle of the subtle something that's lingering. So become that person that's the change agent or transformation agent for others when the door is open. If the door isn't open, then you don't go in at the door. But if the door is open, and you can try to encourage them to, open the door, because I'm not here. I'm here to help, not to hurt, or I'm here not to judge and criticize. I'm here to be a change agent, and an instrument of Krishna agent. So be like that for others, and invite others to be like that for you, and that's nice association. That can help us get beyond stuff that we're kind of stuck on, the subtle stuff we're stuck on. Good association.
Hare Krishna
We
Maharaj.
got one.
There's an online question from Yugadharma Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Why does the material happiness feel real even though it is only an image and no substance?
Because of the illusory energy, it appears to be real. And we buy into the illusion because we don't want the real. So we buy into the illusion. And then after some time, that which appears to be happiness fades. And it starts to smell bad. Because that's what happens to material things. They begin to rot. But that's why it's the illusory energy. It's not happiness, but it appears to be. One can become addicted to it. Lots of people addicted to misery. Sources of misery. Not exactly addicted to misery, but addicted to the sources of misery. Okay, I'm going to end because of my schedule. Thank you very much for